everybody, this is Pete Fletzer from ATG Live and Around the Galaxy. And as of this morning, we are 4 episodes into The Acolyte, the latest Disney Plus Star Wars series. And yes, I am generally a very positive Star Wars fan. You will never see me out there giving somebody a hard time for liking something that I don't. And that's what fandom is about. So what I want to do is I want to give my opinion, share with you the things that I love and the things that I think need, maybe a little improvement or just a different perspective. Overall, for me, The Acolyte is a fantastic show. The story is top notch. And again, whether you agree with where it's going or you fear that it's perhaps breaking lore and canon, which we don't know if it is at all yet. You have to wait for a show to complete. That's the issue here. At 4 episodes in, we don't know what the final end is. We don't know how it's going to impact the canon and the lore moving forward. But I love the story. I love the way it's being told. I love that we're getting some flashbacks. I love that every single episode has given us a little bit of whiplash in character direction and character objectives. I think that is really exciting. I think we are in for what may be a very a surprising ending, maybe almost M. Night Shyamalan-level ending to this type of show. And keep in mind, Leslie Headland created Russian Doll, which was done in a very similar fashion format, in that you are rolling this story and getting new information week to week and then stopping at a point where you're like, keep it going, I want more. I think all of that is fantastic. I love the way the Jedi are being portrayed. I think they're being portrayed as very real. If you think about some of the things that were said in the sequel series, specifically by Luke Skywalker, that the Jedi don't own the Force. There's hubris to the Jedi. There's mistakes they made because of what where they positioned themselves in the galaxy. And I think that's an interesting thing to observe. And I think that may be a challenge for a lot of fans who want to see the Jedi as nothing but sort of the perfect white knight. Obi-Wan Kenobi sold us on the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy.
For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic.
That's a very big, grandiose perspective. And we know from the reality of the world that that's not always the case. Let's talk about the acting in The Acolyte. First of all, I want to say that I feel like the biggest challenge to the actors in The Acolyte is the pacing of the shows. We've said it before, we'll say it again. The episodes are too short. And I don't mean that just simply because I demand more. I want to see everything the same length as Game of Thrones. Not the case at all. I do feel, though, that they have sacrificed the opportunity to let the actors breathe and present the full breadth of what they can deliver. Lee Jung-jae, for example, as Jedi Master Sol, has done a phenomenal job of portraying the heart and the compassion of the Jedi in his limited time on screen. And yes, I know he's one of the stars and has had the most screen time, but he could have more. Also, keep in mind, what's so amazing about Lee Jung-jae's performances, he is not an English-speaking person. In fact, from what I understand, some of the lines he had to present were done purely phonetically, but he was able to portray the emotion and the feeling behind it. The other great actor in this show is Manny Jacinto, playing Chimera. He brings sort of a Joker type of feel to the Star Wars universe. If you watch his lines, now that we've seen the first 4 episodes, and you watch his lines and you go back and watch in episode 2 where we meet him, think of him as the bad guy and watch the way he speaks and the way he delivers his lines. There's a very underlying eerie sense to every word he's saying. He's calculated, he's cunning, he's moving the board pieces himself, much like Palpatine perhaps did, and always as the Joker was doing in Batman. Now, I think you have an actress like Amanda Stenberg, who is a phenomenal actor. She has done amazing work in the past, but I don't feel like her character is given enough time to shine. And what I mean by that is, as a result of sort of trying to move through the episodes so quickly, a lot of the decisions both May and Osha make feel like they're rushed. another couple minutes with these characters would help us understand why they had the feelings they had. Why did May make the decision in episode 4 to give herself up to the Jedi? Now, again, there may be a very logical explanation to this as we get to the end of the series as to, what switched. Is there a different type of connection between her and May, that Osha and May, that we haven't seen, that may make these sort of snap decisions? We don't know. But unfortunately, what it feels like is that the episode was rushed. Let's talk a little bit about the look and feel of the show. The show at times is some of the best looking Star Wars television we've seen. And at other times, the effects and the visuals pull you out of the scene. This has been a challenge ongoing, I think, for a lot of the Star Wars series since probably the end of Mando season 1. Mando season 1 effectively used the soundstage, used the volume and used it really well to give that feeling of size. I feel like there are times with this particular show where we feel like we're on a soundstage. And as a result, it loses some of the grandeur and the spectacle that that the show deserves. As a result, I think what it is doing is it's reminding us that we need Star Wars back in the theaters. Okay. And this is going to be perhaps poorly received, but these stories are great. I've really enjoyed this particular story. This and Andor told a fantastic story. The first couple of seasons of Mandalorian told a great story. Book of Boba Fett had the opportunity to tell a great story. The Ahsoka show, great story opportunities. But what I think we're starting to feel is that there's a style to the television series on Disney Plus that is not up to par with shows like most recently I've watched House of the Dragon and I've watched Three Body Problem, just the two most recent shows I've watched while watching this show. And there's a definite feeling difference. You can get a sense that the scale of those shows is much larger. And I think for the budget and the expectation of the fans, I would like to see these shows feel bigger, be a little longer. Again, keep that pacing so that it feels like a major story versus rushing to get to the next point. And that's the biggest challenge with this show because it is such a great show as it relates to unfolding and peeling the onion and giving you a different mystery every week to build into the larger mystery. Let that work a little more. Let that live on its own. Let that breathe and pull you in even deeper. The reality is, as of now, I am pulled in completely. I want to see where this story goes, but maybe it's the difference between reading a young adult novel and a massive piece of literature. And again, there's nothing wrong with young adult novels. Some of the best stories, specifically in Star Wars, are in young adult novels, but the stories are paced faster and they don't give the depth that perhaps a major motion picture could. And that's what I'd like to see a little bit more of. Overall, this show is compelling. It has pulled me in. I am eagerly awaiting each episode. The litmus test is my 11-year-old son. He has watched these last 3 weeks. And at the end of each episode, he was disappointed, not in the show, but that he had to wait till next week. He is all in on this show, and that says a lot. That's important to Star Wars. The fact that they're able to tell this kind of massive story and keep the attention span of an 11-year-old child is important. That's the future of Star Wars. That's what makes Star Wars tick. Let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? This show has been met with more fandom toxicity than has ever been seen in the Star Wars franchise. And yes, it has been a problem in other franchises for many years. The Star Wars franchise has been bubbling with this toxicity since the Disney takeover, specifically since the release of The Last Jedi. However, this is an extreme that we've never seen before. The fact that the show has been review bombed on Rotten Tomatoes to a point where it's 14% in audience score, that started even before the show aired, makes it impossible to have real conversations about this show. Listen to some of my critiques here. It's a great show. I'm enjoying it, but there are definitely things that I would like to see improved. But that conversation can't happen when people lead with things like it breaks the lore. It's because that's an impatience thing. Lesbian space coven makes the Anakin prophecy useless. What? That's crazy. Not enough straight white men. Why are the Jedi so soft? You need to be paying attention to the show. And if that's all you see, and you need to lead your critique with that, then it's hard to take your critique seriously. And there may be valid points you're making. There may be valid points from people in the audience score, but they will never be seen because of the fact that it has become a political battleground. And Star Wars is suffering because of it. A story like this, as told by Leslie Headland in a mystery format, which goes layer to layer to layer, week to week to week, requires patience. It requires us to wait and see what the entire story tells us. As my good friend Nick Milkey says, you wouldn't put together a third of a puzzle and then get upset because it doesn't look like the box, because you're not done yet. We are halfway through this series. There's plenty to learn. So in conclusion, my overall feeling on the series is I am enjoying it very much. I am pulled in. I am deeply committed to this story. I'm watching it week to week, eagerly anticipating every Tuesday so I get that next layer. This story requires patience. However, it is critical that they stick the landing, that they provide answers to the questions that they started. And it doesn't matter if there's a second season on the horizon, which I don't know if there is or not. But it doesn't matter if there's a second season on the horizon. Let that be its own show. This show needs to close the book on all the mysteries it's created in this particular series. Otherwise, it will provide additional fodder for the YouTube grifters. It will cause Star Wars fans to have to defend it instead of enjoy it. And so my hope is that what we've seen so far is just the beginning of what will be a fantastic and important Star Wars story. And I'm excited to see where this goes.